Jim Romer on this April 17th with crude oil prices collapsing, affecting many markets from sugar to grains to coffee, you name it. But let's talk about El Nino, how we've caught some multiple moves, really bearish the last two summers in grains. The polar vortex, a big move in natural gas in January, and recently bearish coffee by forecast for the drought to end in Brazil. I predicted 6 months ago. How will El Nino affect commodities? How can you, as a farmer, or an investor, take advantage of my service? There's so much noise out there. People don't update their forecast regularly. There's all this confusion with AI. We're going to talk about how you can take advantage of multiple markets using the weather. Will there be a super El Nino? Well, I don't think so. Maybe a 25% chance by the end of the year. Often models overpredict these things. But if we have even a weak El Nino, notice how the hurricanes tend to be more out in the Pacific and away from the U.S. We'll talk about that more this fall. So how can you get my basic service? Don't stick your tongue out at me. Maybe you're upset. You won't get all the trading ideas and things like that. I'm not going to be blind. I'm still going to give you some good weather information and talk about commodities for free on Substack. You can go to my site, subscribe there, and get some off and on updates for free. But if you want the full gamut with trading ideas, updated forecasts, sometimes 3 times a week, catching the bearish move in corn and beans the last 2 summers, this may be different this summer. Being short call options in coffee, for example, catching the polar vortex move in natural gas. Watching the wheat market right now, monitoring this stuff at 3 o'clock in the morning. You want to know the trading ideas and ETFs, futures, and options, then you need to subscribe to WeatherWealth. So let's talk about wheat first of all. This is the cover of one of my newsletters here early on this past week. Obviously, we have this drought in the wheat areas, lingering effects of La Nina. The maps turned drier 2 or 3 days ago when I advised my clients. The maps look drier, and wheat prices exploded until crude oil prices collapsed on this Friday and has pressured the market somewhat. So we have these spiders, and I'll have them occasionally on Substack, but specific trading ideas, again, in my WeatherWealth newsletter. We've been slightly bullish KC wheat, not extremely because of the outside markets, the war, and good global crops for other wheat areas in Europe and Russia and the soft red belt. We talk about the anti-herd mentality, how many people are short or long the market, the moisture index, things like that. All that pretty much gives us a score of slightly bullish. And you can see how over the last couple of weeks or so, the Kansas City-Chicago wheat spread has exploded, and it starts to rain in the plains in the next few weeks. That spread will reverse itself. But right now, that's really kind of a similar situation to the La Nina of 1996 with that red and drought areas in the plains. So, very tricky. We have a decaying La Nina, and on the cusp of the end of La Nina and El Nino forming, if we see occasional La Nina conditions, notice from my in-house program used by farmers and traders all over the world, La Nina conditions would extend into May and be dry there in red. That would create more of a bull move in the Kansas City market the next few weeks. Take advantage of my service. I'll update you very, very often. However, if you see weak El Nino conditions develop, and again, we're very close to that happening, notice the difference in blue, a wetter May, and that would take the steam out of the wheat market here in the next couple weeks, so stay tuned. How about corn and soybeans? So I've been bearish the last 2 summers, unlike many other analysts there, because of my teleconnections and feel the markets the last 30 or 40 years. We have a negative PDO still, the bottom there on the right. Warm in the Western Pacific, kind of normal to cool along the coast of California. And that combined with a weak El Nino tends to bring hotter weather there in July and or August in the Corn Belt. And some areas could actually turn dry. Right now, things are great. I look for good planting weather, a little bit dry in Nebraska, certainly in South Dakota, but good pretty everywhere else. That can mean bearish corn here for a while if planting weather continues ideal, but then it could get hot and dry in the summer possibly. Stay tuned. Strong El Nino events tend to have normal to cool summers in the Midwest and usually above normal yields. But when you have a negative PDO and a weak El Nino, there could be some problems this summer. Cotton has soared. We predicted this about a month ago. Higher crude prices, severe drought in Texas, lower U.S. acres. We're approaching a 5-year trend line. But if crude oil prices continue to fall, and if the drought does ease in the South in the next month or two, it's possible cotton prices could sell off. It all depends on if El Nino forms in time ahead of planting. So we have a positive Indian dipole. It has to do with ocean temperatures near India. And the El Nino signal here, if it develops by May or June, are both positively correlated with rainfall. A positive Indian dipole over the Indian Ocean, a weak to moderate El Nino this summer, would ease the Texas drought. Are we still going to be bullish? That's something you'll have to pay attention to here over the next few months. So we caught the down move in sugar last year, about a 15% break. Seasonally, sugar prices go lower. The reason is production peaking this year, a global surplus of 8.3 million metric tons. I predicted this last April and May, actually. As you can see here from last year, in blue, good crop weather, good yields in Brazil, in India, great monsoon last summer, I predicted. And in blue, Thailand, the number 3 biggest producer of sugar in the world, also had a good crop. But the fluctuating crude oil market and uncertainty about the ethanol sugar formula, the conversion factor, has occasionally created rallies in sugar the last few months, but for the most part, I've been bearish. So look at this now. El Nino may be forming soon. The first effects are in Thailand, getting a little bit dry there. So if it's dry May, June, and July, and their 26-27 crop gets nipped, the 25-26 crop was fine. That and what happens again with the Indian monsoon could mean that the sugar market bottoms out and rallies sometime this summer, even with a weak El Nino. Remember back in 2009, we had a weak El Nino, not a strong one, and the Indian monsoon was still relatively poor. So we've been watching all these teleconnections for clients. Cocoa, what a move down, about 70-80% sell-off on poor demand. Prices were too high about 6 to 9 months ago. Look at that in blue, generally excellent, healthy crops there in West Africa. But El Nino could be a bullish factor, particularly with people being short the market right now. And that we'll be watching, especially this winter when the Harmattan wind season begins. One of my best calls, of course, if you've been a subscriber or seen my information, was calling the end of the Brazil coffee drought. Last October, I used these teleconnections, a weakening La Nina, the ocean temperatures in the Pacific and along the African coast. Look at that in blue. My forecast for December through February from last October, November was for above normal rainfall. So coffee prices have broken about, 20% from the highs on this. The trade tariffs a few months ago, the war, the Strait of Hormuz being shut down, they couldn't export coffee the last few weeks or so, has created volatility. But for the most part, I've been bearish this market really since last fall and again since the middle part of March. How about orange juice, folks? Not a lot of volume in that particular market, but if it was not for poor demand, people are drinking coconut water, even cactus water. Don't get pricked by that. We would go to $3 again. Look at the Florida drought. That may ease, but right now there's still problems with the crop. I called the Florida freeze very early there on the right. And Brazil citrus greetings lower their crop. So I'm bullish orange juice cautiously. Demand has hurt this market. Look at this a few years ago to the left. Orange juice price went to $6 almost, and then collapsed this last year because demand shifted away from oranges to alternative drinks. I called the Florida freeze. Look at the volatility in the market here the last 2 or 3 months. I expect oranges prices may break to the upside here because I think the global supply situation is really, really bad. So, occasional free reports, folks, about weather, climate, and commodities without the trading ideas. It's okay. Go to Substack, subscribe if you want some free information. And if you want the full gamut with frequent updates, we answer your questions if you're a farmer about hedging, about when to plant, when to harvest, or just any weather or trading question. If you want that, and trading ideas from soft commodities, grains, and also natural gas, then get WeatherWealth. Again, one trade alone, folks, like being short coffee for the last 5 months, pays for the service for 3 years. Or how about this wheat move in the Kansas City wheat contract? Will that end? Will the drought break? One trade, folks, pays for the newsletter for several years. Too much information out there. We try to narrow things down. It's worth the cost. Enjoy the weekend. Have a safe spring. And let's hope that things turn around in the world and are more peaceful. Thank you.